Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. What we have here is that we have Letitia James finally being indicted by a grand jury. And of course, the left is crying out, losing their minds. No surprise there. But I think that people need to start realizing on what what we're dealing with, and kind of the things that Letitia James has really gone after, because these are some of the key points that we have to address here. Now, what we have first is that they say there were people saying here from lawfare saying the Justice Department dangerously weak case against Letitia James. Well, apparently it wasn't so weak, because it was so weak apparently that the grand jury indicted her within the same day, even though it takes weeks, maybe even a month or so, for them to indict somebody. So I don't know how weak this could possibly be.
Hearing evidence against Tish James, we have now heard the news that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted. Carol Leonnig.
Yeah, a few minutes ago we confirmed that she was indicted by a grand jury in Alexandria of at least one count of bank fraud, Nicole, and the return was rather speedy. 4 o'clock was when the grand jury was supposed to come back out and present their information to Halligan. There was a four-person in the courtroom along with Halligan, and they released their decision. I will tell you there's one other really interesting element to this that I'm hearing from sources, which is that this grand jury made its decision and listened to the presentation on its very first day in the box. In other words, grand juries sit sometimes for weeks and weeks. This grand jury was impaneled today, and this was their first case and their first decision.
Yeah, it was so weak, guys. It's so weak that it was announced on their first day and their first decision. That's how weak it was. This is the reason why you cannot be trusting the mainstream media and all this stuff that's been going on, because they lie. They lie. Now obviously I'm doing MSNBC, which pretty much MSDNC. So obviously we got to be careful on what they say here. But apparently it was such a big deal. It was so quick that they did it on the first day. And again, this woman has campaigned on going against Trump. We can't really say that this is like a two-world street here, because she campaigned on against Trump. This was the whole thing here. We have this here where it says, yes, New York Attorney General Letitia James campaigned on a pledge to investigate and pursue Donald Trump. During a successful 2018 campaign, she called Trump an illegitimate president and promised to shine a light on his business dealings. Key events surrounding this history include a civil lawsuit in 2022. James filed a civil lawsuit against Trump and his company. The Trump Organization accused them of fraudulently overstating the value of their assets to obtain favorable loan and insurance terms. And then we have the civil trial verdict, which in February of 2024, a New York judge ruled in James's favor, however, finding Trump liable for fraud and initially ordering him to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in penalties. Then you had the appeals court ruling, which in August of 2025, a New York appeals court upheld the lower court's finding that Trump had committed fraud, but threw out the substantial financial penalty and calling it excessive. James' office plans to appeal this decision to the state's highest court. So that is a background with Letitia James. And it doesn't end there, because she also went on to The View to spout her actual campaign and her ruling of not going after just Donald Trump, but his entire family. So this was a plot from the beginning here.
Again, our investigation currently is civil in nature. It is not criminal. In the event that we uncover any activity or conduct, in the event that we uncover any conduct, oh yes,
but will you go ahead with the civil suits?
Yes, our civil suit will continue, whether he's president or not. And so after January 20th at 12 o'clock, our investigation will continue, Joy.
There's no way a potential pardon for Trump or his three eldest kids would shield them from anything you're investigating. Am I right? That's what you just said, I believe.
Correct. He cannot pardon himself. What he could do is step down and allow the Vice President Pence, to pardon him. In all likelihood, I suspect that he will pardon his family members, his children, his son-in-law, and individuals in his administration, as well as some of his close associates. And then I suspect at some point in time, he will step down and allow the vice president to pardon him. Now, it's important to understand he is pardoned from federal crimes, but he is not pardoned from state crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill in the state legislature which would close the pardon loophole so that individuals such as the President of the United States would not evade justice. It's important that we have this check on presidential powers. And in the legislature, the state legislature, I'm so happy they passed that bill, and it is now the law in the state of New York. President Trump cannot avoid justice in the great state of New York.
If Democrats like Slotkin are going to come out today and whine about selective prosecutions over Tish James, her entire career is built on the selective prosecution of one man. Now, I also believe what Elliot said. There's a process here. Everybody gets their day in court. Obviously, a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges. We don't know what they are, but a grand jury looked at this and says, okay, there's something here. She gets to go to court just like Comey, just like anyone else. But to me, it's just not going to fly to boo-hoo over selective prosecutions on this particular person who promised in her campaigns, who went after him on things, as Jonah said, that had no business ever happening, if not but for the man's last name being Trump. So I'm not going to.
How is that not a two wrongs make a right argument?
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying she gets her day in court. I'm saying a grand jury saw enough evidence to bring charges, and I'm saying she gets to go to court and tell her side of the story.
Yeah, so it's just not looking great for her. It's not looking great for her at all. And what we have here is simply from New York Post, pretty much saying New York AG Letitia James indicted on federal bank fraud, false claim charges. Says here, New York Attorney General Letitia James was indicted Thursday by a federal grand jury in Virginia on charges of bank fraud and making false claims to a financial institution that netted her nearly $19,000 in savings on a loan for a second home, according to the Department of Justice. So here's the one thing that people need to understand here is that the mainstream media will never say, even the woman here doesn't even say whether or not what she was actually charged on, because of course they never do that. That's above them. All right. So the indictment was handed up in the Eastern District of Virginia, where former FBI Director James Comey was indicted September 25th on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. No one is above the law. The charges are alleged in this case represent intentional criminal acts and tremendous breaches of public trust, a U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan said in a statement. So, yeah, saying that these charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost, she added. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties. Has it, though? Because I don't think it has. I think we're actually happy that you're being indicted along with James Comey and a lot of you very corrupt and honestly terrible Democrats. You are the ones that incite violence. You're the ones that go after people for what they speak, etc., and all stuff like that. You guys are the ones that do this. You guys won't even go out and say and remove Jay Jones from being the Attorney General. You guys will be alongside him, and you will remain speechless when it's brought up to you. So yeah, obviously you guys are not the side of the party here. And by the way, aren't you the one that said that no one is above the law?
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here. And again, justice will prevail. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know. So, like, if you are not guilty, and as shown, you will be, and the charges are baseless, then you'll win, right? You'll just win, and then you won't have to worry about it. But the thing is that the jury indicted you on day one, lady. day one. I don't know what else to tell you. If you've been indicted on day one, then it doesn't look like the charges are baseless. It looks like I think you're cooked. I think you're done. I think you're going to have to face the actual accountability for your crimes. And it's something a lot of these women do. I didn't say women. Something that you Democrats do. If convicted on both counts, James faces up to 60 years in prison and a fine up to $2 million. That's what James Comey faces. And it's not looking good. Yes, I think a lot of these Democrats need to be held accountable. And time again, we're seeing especially this past week, on how a lot of these Democrats tend to be completely unhinged, completely insane. Like with the California upcoming governor here, Katie Porter, she's quite literally saying, "Get the F out of my shot," when one of her staff members gets in her shot, or like her throwing mashed potatoes onto her ex-husband, or yelling at her kids for wanting to see their daughter, or their sister. So I don't know on how we can keep doing this type of insanity here when these Democrats are exposing themselves and how bad they are, not just leadership, but just personally in general. Like, you can't be having these people in office if they're this violent. I mean, again, you still Jay Jones saying the most horrible things to children, wanting them to die. So it's not surprised that these Democrats are being caught with fraud and all these other crimes, because they've committed crimes already as is, or committed domestic abuse. It's not surprising here. So I think Letitia James is cooked. I think she's done, and she's getting just what she deserves. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share. As always, take care, my friends.